got a beard and it's looking something fierce. Having beers with my peers and talking rap careers. Reflecting on the years, connecting on the tears. Shipwreck faith ain't always as appears. I'm bringing you fresh music, I'm bringing fresh ideas. I'm bringing you the dudes in the indie music biz. Chilling at the shows and talking about the pain with people who learned how to face it and be sane. Sipping on a brew, doing interviews. No topics off the table, but we focus on breakthroughs. So kick up your feet, we're gonna put it in check. You're listening to Brews, Beards, and Shipwrecks. 1, 2, 1, 2, on mic check, stone bounce, royal ruckus on the scene, just to announce. We got the brews, we got the beards, tasty interviews for your ears to hear. 1, 2, 1, 2, on mic check, stone bounce, royal ruckus on the scene, just to announce. We got the brews, we got the beards, tasty interviews for your ears to hear.
Welcome to Brews, Beards, and Shipwrecks. This is Jamie Bennett, also known as Chun Jay from Royal Ruckus, and I'm here tonight with me as always,
Nomadic Vagabond. And we also got a special guest in the house, Braille Brizzy.
What up, y'all?
What's going on, my dude?
I'm chilling, man. I'm chilling.
welcome to the show. I see you brought the family car.
The minivan, bro. The minivan. My wife hooked it up. She was like, hey, you can take the van. That's always good because if it's not the van, it's the Camry without the hubcaps, you know.
Sure. Yeah. Gotta love a good Camry.
Yeah, for sure. I'm at my son's soccer practice, so
nice. Which brings me to my first question. What are we drinking? Because you're at kids' soccer practice, and sometimes our guests have beer. What are you drinking on?
This is it's from Black Ink Coffee, Oregon City. They were like a mile and a half away from the soccer field. So this is a Americano with a little bit of raw honey. Now, if I wasn't in a car, I could add some Irish cream or something to it, you know, but right now that would be a bad idea. Not because I would not be able to drive with a splash of Irish cream, but because it's illegal. So
just a minor detail.
Yes. That'd be traumatic for my son. He would be like, what has happened?
You don't want to be the soccer dad getting arrested for open container or something, you know?
Nah, man.
Well, Nomadic, what are you sipping on?
Well, I've got keep it hydrated, some Waterloo raspberry nectarine. And then I poured a Harp Irish lager because, you know, the day we're recording St. Patty's Day. And then I poured myself just a little splash of some Redbreast Irish whiskey.
Very nice. That sounds yummy. I'm just having an Athletic Brewing Company Golden Ale. I should be sponsored by them at this point, you know, as much as I've had them on this show. I'm also doing something I don't normally do. I don't do this very often. I'm having a cigar. And I'm actually smoking a CAO, the America cigar. It's pretty good. I love CAO. I used to live in Nashville, and they were headquartered in Nashville. And when they were family owned, they actually sponsored like a charitable event that was like pro-life. So like I have a lot of brand loyalty, but they're totally corporate now. I don't think those people are even involved. So anyway, I don't know if you guys smoke cigars or not, but I thought it'd be a fun change of pace for the show.
I've sat with people while they do it. The thing is, I'm always with people that they know what they're doing. And I'm like, the last thing I want to do is sit there as a 40-year-old man and sit around a bunch of people who know what they're doing and be so obvious that I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. And
if I was like 22, I'd be like, hey guys, show me how, you know, but now I'm just like, it's all good. I'm good.
Well, you know, and especially when we're all getting older, you got to be thinking about your health. I mean, a cigar is not a health instrument. You know, it's not a supplement.
It's not a multivitamin.
Hey,
no,
it's good mental health though.
Sure. I like that. Well, I wanted to jump right into it with some stuff, because I've seen you perform a couple times. I've seen you with Lightheaded years ago, and both times I saw you was in Nashville. And then I saw you solo. And one thing that could be said about both of those performances was there was like high energy, like super high energy, and it made them memorable to me, so that like 15-20 years later, like I still remember those shows. And I've been to a lot of shows in the meantime. So like, plus the fact that as a rapper, I feel like you do a good job of blending like raw life experiences, like your faith is present in there as well. So I wonder if like you could share like what might have influenced your approach as a performer, when you're crafting music, when you're crafting lyrics, and then like how you're putting that on stage in front of folks.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to performance, I mean, that's it's funny because I forget that I used to be real energetic, because I'm mad chill now. I got equilibrium issues, so if I do a show, it's like get me a stool, you know. But yes, I think the energy part of that was the era that I came up in, man. I honestly, it was like if there was an opportunity for me to rap, I would do it, right? And so that meant sometimes I was rapping in front of thousands of people. Sometimes I was rapping in front of 5 people. Sometimes I was at a hip hop open mic night. Sometimes I was at a youth group. For me, it was all the same. Christian hip hop was barely a thing when I came up. So when I came up, and especially growing up in Portland, Oregon, like I was in the West Coast, it's like, dude, there was no Christian hip hop movement. There was just hip hop, right? And so there's a lot of places where like I'd be in an area like Idaho or something. They're like, I think this is the first hip hop show that's ever happened in our city, you know? So there was something where I was constantly just trying to learn, how do I translate what I do to this environment, right? And I think that is one aspect. The other aspect was, and so that's even being like this Christian hip hop dude. All right, I'm at a bar. Everybody's drinking a little or drinking a lot, you know, and how am I going to even come on this stage and like relate at all? And I think for me, the thing that got me into hip hop in the first place was, as I was growing up in Portland, Oregon, as I started like getting exposed to a wider variety of hip hop from all over. Obviously, when you're in the 90s, the majority of it was East Coast, West Coast. A lot of it was either California or New York. But I started getting exposed even in the underground stuff to stuff from all over. But even just with it being California and New York, it was like being transported to a different world where I'm like, I've never been to Queensbridge, but Mobb Deep has given me a sense of, dang, I guess I don't live in the projects, if that's what the projects are like, right? Like, so
Right.
they were painting a picture, you know, of what their surroundings were.
Yeah.
And that's when for me, the era that I came up in, if you were fake with what you were rapping about, like if what you rapped about wasn't really who you were, that was like the one-way ticket to just getting clowned, right? So that's like faking jacks, faking the funk,
Yeah.
whatever. So
Right.
I kind of just had it ingrained in me from a young age, that you can't just bite somebody's style, so you have to figure out how to use your own voice. And also, don't be caught out here talking about something that's not really you, or that you don't really know, or that you don't really live. And
Yeah.
so once I became a Christian, it just made sense to me, not from a Christian hip hop standpoint, but it's like, I've got to represent myself authentically in what I do, because that's what you do as an MC, you know? So that was just the era that I came up in. And, yeah, if anything, like I'm a rule follower by nature, you know, even before being a believer. It's like I'm just a rule follower. I'm like, wait, what am I supposed to do? It's like, well, if you're going to be an MC, you're supposed to actually like represent your real self. So
Sure.
that was ingrained.
Yeah. Well, and I think it makes a lot of your work, and you could probably extend this to the other artists you've worked with, as a label owner, and and all the different things you've done. But there's this sense in which the realness does come through, and like I feel like you guys push the boundaries a little bit of Christian hip hop, not like in a revolutionary way. Like, you guys weren't the guys trying to bring in cussing to be cool or something,
Yeah,
like,
not in a rebellious way.
right. There you go.
Yeah.
Not in a rebellious way at all. But like, you guys had a distinct sound. It was fresh. It was fun. But it was introspective at times. So, I guess what's the legacy that you've left with this work, and the Lightheaded, and maybe some of the other projects you've been involved in? What's the legacy for like the present and perhaps even the future?
Yeah, I mean, some of that I don't even know. I'm like reacquainting myself with the stuff that I did in the past. Sometimes it's like it's literally like a different life. So I've been a full-time pastor for almost 7 years now. And so I'll like watch, you're talking about me being energetic. I can watch a video and be like, oh yeah, I remember. I guess that's me doing that, but like in my body, I can't feel myself
Sure.
do it, but in everything, like, I guess with me, the things that at least the ways I understand myself now, I've got pretty severe ADD, like to the point where once I get fixed on something, I'm like one track mind in order to actually get something done, because if not, then I will just jump from thing to thing to thing to thing. And so it's like my brain compensates for my ADD by being hyper focused, where it's like, you have to tell me what my task is. If I don't know what my task is, then like I'm just sitting here driving myself crazy. And so I would just jump from task to task. So like, the way Lightheaded came about, I would do solo stuff, then I'd meet somebody. So Omega Watts, he was like one of my best friends. When I did high school, my junior and senior year of high school, I was living in New Jersey, and I met him. We both were at this Christian hip hop gathering called Crewvention, which was like such an odd event. This was like 1998. How often were there Christian hip hop gatherings? I mean, they weren't like festivals or nothing, but me and him met there, and we were both newly saved. And so we just became really close friends. But after high school, I moved back to the Northwest. And then once he graduated college, he came to work on music with me. But, working with me, because of that ADD, it's like, okay, me and him had a group called Return to Sender. So we're going to work on our Return to Sender album. But then I'm at a church, and, someone else in the church is like, hey, we're trying to make this project to like give out to people. So I'm like, hey, Omega, how about we make this other album, Acts 29, because this church needs an album, And then we meet Othello, because there were this other crew in Seattle. And I was like, oh, I really like Othello. Hey, Omega, how about me and you make an album with Othello? And I met this guy in Canada named Moonshine who makes beats. So let's do that. And so whatever my brain got fixed to, that would become the project. And then I would work on that project till it was done. And sometimes I would actually drop the ball on what I was supposed to do. So Syntax Records would be like, all right, we're waiting for the next Braille record. Oh, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Do you want the Acts 29 record? They're like, what's the Acts 29 record? I'm like, oh, well, it was for a youth group. They wanted to make an album, and I got carried away, And then, then what are you doing next? Well, I got this group Lightheaded now. And so I think for me, it was I just enjoyed making music, and I wanted to get things done. And so once I start something, if I can get past like 50% completion, then I'm pretty much committed to 100% completion. So if you catch me at 30%, there's no guarantee, right? But once we pass that 50%, it's like, now I'm invested. I've spent money. I've spent a bunch of time. I'm going to see this through, even if it's completely unreasonable. Like, why are you making an album for a youth group right now when like you just got signed and you're supposed to be making a solo album? Well, because I started it, and
Sure.
so I'll just put myself into it. And that's what everything was. Hip hop is music. Starting my first record label was just, there were artists who were like me where we didn't fit. Because back then, if you were going to be signed to a Christian label, it was going to be in Nashville. You basically had Goatee, a few other things. So there was kind of this Nashville Christian hip hop sound. And then there was underground hip hop, but most of the underground labels weren't going to sign Christian rappers. And then you had mainstream, and we were underground. So mainstream wasn't going to sign us. And so I was like, there is literally no outlet for us. So I'm just going to do this myself, and once I learned how to do it myself, like get something to the finish line, if I met another talented rapper, I'd be like, yo, you don't know how to get this to the finish line? I know how to get it to the finish line. Let's work together, and that's like, that really was what made me even start a record label, because it wasn't like starting a business. I didn't know what I was doing. What I knew how to do, really, I was an A&R executive producer more than I was a label person. And if I would have had a business partner back then who knew the business stuff, that would have been way better. But it was the wild, wild west, man. This is pre Spotify. This is pre, people weren't even, it's pre iTunes. You know what I mean? It's a whole different era.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, for me, like,
Seems so much.
95% of those records on Hip Hop is Music to me are like classics. I mean, every time their one would come out, I was always at 360 scooping it up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, there was a dope run, man. There was like, one of my weaknesses, because of how just like driven I would get. I mean, I remember with Hip Hop is Music, I had a napkin one time. I was on tour with Lightheaded, and because we toured a lot, I would meet these different people who were part of different crews. So I'd meet Sojourner Future Shock, and I'd be like, bro, he needs to make a solo album, right? Or I'd meet Theory Hazard of Scribbling Idiots. I'm like, man, he needs to make a solo album. Or I'd meet Big Wreck, and I'd be like, he needs to make a solo album. We never quite finished his, but I would just meet these different people, and I'm like, dude, they don't have an album out, or they don't have, I want to see that through. And so I would like dig for production for them. I would send them like 100 different beats to pick from. Be like, yo, what flavor are you feeling? Sibian, same thing. Sure. I'm like, bro, you're really dope. Let me help you get the kind of production you need. And that was just like, I just loved that. I loved helping people put together albums. And so, yeah, we had a good run. And leading up till like, the whole music industry, the same time the economy crashed in 2008, the whole music industry started crashing and changing really dramatically, because that was when digital started coming in. And so physical sales started going down.
Right.
And also international companies, after the Iraq war, they stopped messing with American artists to the same degree. So, a lot of the ways where I was pushing the CDs and stuff like that, it wasn't just stateside. It was working with distribution in Japan, distribution in Australia, distribution in Germany. And all of that would accumulate so that we could actually press up CDs and move enough of them to pay for making the record, but yeah. Around 2008, 2009, that it started changing pretty dramatic.
Yeah, I bet. That sounds about the right year. It was weird to watch that whole transition.
Yeah, man. Yep.
Well, you mentioned that you're a pastor, and there's a lot of rappers / actors, but not a lot of rappers / pastors. So tell me about these. I'm sure in some ways it might sometimes feel like two identities, but you seem like a whole person, and it seems like you bring your faith into your music. So I don't see why you wouldn't be, who you are at all times. But how do you reconcile these identities, and like, how does it impact your music and then your ministry?
I mean, it was actually really hard to reconcile it for me at first. You know, if anybody's been paying attention, I mean, after Beautiful Eulogy, our last album was 2017. So I haven't made an album officially in like 8 years. And I've been a pastor for 7 years. And so it was really hard to reconcile because the church that I pastor, it was a dying congregation with about 35 members, all over 65. And then there were some people from the church where I was a non-staff pastor who came with us, and most of them under 35. But these are like young families, and I'm kind of the dude in the middle, between this older generation, this younger generation. And so, I literally would have like 100-year-old lady. Her name was Joyce. She's went with the Lord now, but hold my hand and call me pastor. 99-year-old lady, hold my hand, call me pastor. And then like I look in the mirror and I'm like, hey, yo, I'm trying to put on my rap. I'm like, dude, I don't know how to reconcile these worlds. This is so different. And not to mention, it's coming out of doing Beautiful Eulogy. So once we were done with Beautiful Eulogy, and it's not that like there was any issues. Me, Thomas, and Cortland, we love each other. We're brothers, but we knew we couldn't go from we do music full time together to now, we're going to see each other once every 3 months and make a song. No. Like, you're not going to have the chemistry. So we intentionally said, Worthy's our last record. But that just left me with like, how do I, as a solo artist, come on the back end of the run that we had as Beautiful Eulogy? Plus, I'm new to being a pastor and like understand how to now translate myself again musically. That was really hard. I'm finally getting to a place, and really, I was okay. I think I was like, dude, I'm good. I'm done. I'm done with music. I mean, I did it full time for 18 years. And there was such a learning curve into full-time pastoral ministry. Plus it's like I got 3 kids, I got my wife. I'm like, dude, I'm cool. I don't need to make music. But I'm finding myself back where it's like it's kind of silly to invest 20 some years of your life into developing a skill set and to developing a way for you to communicate yourself and express yourself, and then just to abandon it. It's like, actually, I think this is still a medium I can use. So it's hilarious, man. I've been posting some old videos, and one of my congregants like, was that AI? You had some long hair, and I'm like, dude, I don't even want you guys to see this. It's going to mess with your head the way you view me. But so that it is a hard thing to reconcile in some ways, not because I only know how to be like fully myself in either setting. And yet at the same time, I do translate myself to my audience. Like, I don't go up to a 99-year-old and hey, yo, Polly, what's up, girl? It's not like that. I meet her where she's at. And I love it. But the big change for me in that, and you'll just have to, sometimes I ramble because I'm like, I don't know how to answer. I'm still figuring out the answer to some of the questions. But part of it was, and we know this, man, like I grew up, even though I was a Christian hip hop artist, in a lot of ways, I was, my faith stayed intact the whole time. But hip hop really came first. And then my faith was the filter through which my hip hop was expressed. And so there were boundaries that I wouldn't cross. And yet at the same time, I was growing more as an artist in a lot of ways more as an artist than I was as a person. And so once I started actually getting discipled in a local church, I started seeing, man, music can only take me so far in terms of how I grow as an actual man. And so once I started being discipled in the local church, I realized, like, man, I can't translate the benefit I'm receiving from the local church simply through my music. I can promote what I'm benefiting from, but I can't translate it. The only way to translate it is to actually practice it. And that's what started planting the seeds in my heart, that it's like, man, I actually want to be a pastor, man. I want to walk along people. I don't want to just inspire them from a distance. I
Yeah.
want to walk alongside people who are in the mud and get in the mud with them and help them get out. And it's great if I can inspire people from a distance, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's the way I was compelled. I was like, man, I needed people to walk with me. And so I want to actually walk with people. I want to like be invested in their life for the long term. And you can build community like that through music, and some people are good at it. But man, I had so many, friendships and stuff in music where, yes, the Lord was a part of it, but it wasn't the main feature. And when music wasn't cracking, or, people went their separate ways or whatever, I was like, man, it's really hard to stay bound together when you're not crossing paths, in the local church and actually doing life together. And so I was like, I want to invest in the people that I'm going to actually do life with. And all of that was just kind of pointing me in the direction of local church ministry.
Sure.
Well, I remember when we were, it was like right before the Native Lungs came out, and like, we were doing that song together and going to like the Humble Beast studio, and just, you and I kind of just talking and stuff. And, you're even talking about like, you weren't sure even if you wanted to keep rapping or do music. You're like, I'm not sure if I want to be a pastor or do music. So, I mean, it's kind of cool to see, sometimes you got to put stuff down only for God to have you pick it back up,
Yep. Yeah, man. And that's part of it, is especially when there's an unhealthy aspect of it where it's like, I see that even as I re-engage, man, it's hard. People who, even in the beautiful eulogy, like you're doing ministry and stuff, but man, it's a weird feeling when you headline a show and then there's like 100 people lined up just to take a selfie with you. It's a weird experience. Like my cheekbones hurting at the end of the night, not
Yeah.
from rapping, but from smiling for pictures. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like it's a weird experience. And I think I was getting to a place where it's like, dude, so much has changed in my life. I don't always know how to reconcile all of it. And so I'm always happy to fall back if that's what I need to do. Because it's really hard for me to just put on my poker face and be like, oh yeah, this is what I'm all about. It's like, nah, I'm actually, I want to be home with my family right now, and I'm doing like as few shows as I possibly can just to pay my bills, and I'm actually just preparing for ministry. You know what I mean? It was a weird experience, but I think transition is hard for everybody. Like you're figuring out as you go.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. And honestly, with as messy as life really is, it's hard to get to the next thing and to transition smoothly through those things. But the beautiful messiness is kind of what I hear and what you're talking about. And like on this show, like we talk, a lot of our listeners expect, that we're going to talk about some of the messiness of life, because that's not off topic here. It's, not just a strict hip hop show. It's also about real life. So I'm wondering if you could take us more into those personal experiences, if you had any that maybe felt like a setback, but ultimately was a catalyst for your growth and what made you who you are today.
Bro, I mean, where there's so many ways we can go with that, but I mean so coming out of 2009 going into 2010, I mean, this, what's also kind of wild is as an artist, I always was just telling you what was going on in my life. But as you get older and you have children and like you realize like, man, my story is tangled up with other people's stories.
Sure.
And sometimes I'm like, do I have permission to tell the story? Like, because it's not just my story, it's other people's stories. Like, am I gonna name names? It starts getting weird. It's like, bro, I there's so many pieces to the puzzle, but I think an aspect that a lot of people who were following me from back in the day or who heard the Weapon Aid record kind of know how things played out. Basically, I went through a divorce going into 2010. It was kind of from the end of 2009 into 2010. But yeah, my ex-wife left me, was pursuing another relationship. And so in that part of my life, I was seeking to be faithful as best as I knew how. And I knew at that point it was kind of a crossroads where it's either I fall away from the Lord and I just use this as an excuse to while out, or I draw nearer to the Lord.
Right.
And part of it was I had a 3-year-old girl. And so because my ex had kind of left and, was pursuing other things, I also just became a single father. And so that was, in my circumstances, one of the ways I think in which God providentially was steering the ship to keep me focused. And so it's like, man, I can't really wild out. I got this 3-year-old girl. I'm like, I'm not going to drop her off at a babysitter. Like, her world has been shook and she doesn't even understand it.
Yeah.
And so I just became like full-time dad, filed bankruptcy so that I wouldn't have to do a lot of shows and stuff to pay the bills. And just basically, I would do one show a month and I would bring her with me. And she would just sit on the stage with a pacifier while I would perform. And that's how we kept our like 1-bedroom apartment cracking. And yeah, man. So that's when I really leaned into the Lord, started getting discipling, things like that, where I took my walk with the Lord as serious as I knew how to take it. And I was striving in many ways to be faithful, but I was not really well taught. And again, I wasn't really discipled. And so in that season of life, that's when I just started benefiting from sound doctrine. I started benefiting from a community of people in my life who were pointing me to Jesus. And that, in addition to just, God's hand and God's care, kept me not just sane through like a devastating scenario, life circumstances, but actually brought me out on the other side. In some ways worse for the wear. There's definitely like scars and ways in which I think the timidness that would have characterized me in my like early to mid teens, I became timid all over again. I think I became really insecure because when you get like abandoned by someone that you didn't expect to abandon you, you do kind of internalize like, okay, there's something wrong. Maybe there's something wrong with me, or maybe I'm just not like, I'm not good enough. I always got to like prove that I have some value to offer. And so that was just a weird thing. But then it's like I would shake it and I would just like, nah, I'm going to push through. I'm going to persevere. And so then I just would try and go all out, and make another album, do another show, do whatever. Yeah, but the Lord really kept me through that. But that was where it was a major crossroads in my life. And so even though it didn't throw me into ministry, it really became the precipice for me understanding that the thing that is going to keep me is not the music, it's the Lord. And so what do I want to give people, the music or the Lord? And I'm like, I want to give them the Lord. The Lord's who kept me. And that's all of that was driving me eventually to ministry. But that was the major turning point in my life for sure.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people have a hard time pressing on the course when things like that happen. That's the shipwrecks in the show. And sometimes people don't survive the shipwreck. How did you find strength and stay sane during that period?
Yeah, probably. So I remember this So there was a church I was a part of that I go to in the morning, and there's so many layers to the story. It's hilarious. I won't go on too many rabbit trails, but I end up staying at a friend's. I was okay. My living circumstances. There's a song called Too Many Tomorrows from the Native Lungs album. And I don't know. I talk about like we lived in 8 different houses, but literally, I had moved my family to San Diego. Everything fell apart. I moved back. I was staying at my brother's. Then I was staying at my mom's. Then I was staying at in a trailer. Then I was staying in a friend's apartment before I finally got my own apartment. And when I was staying at the friend's apartment, I had a church that I was going to in the morning, but then across the street from that apartment was a church that gathered in the evening. And I'm just like, whatever, bro. I'm going to this one in the morning. I'm going to this one in the evening. Cause I was just like, where else am I going to go?
Sure.
And so I'm at this church service in the evening, and this is like a smaller church. The church I went to in the morning was a larger one. And I remember the sermon. It was when God made a covenant with Abraham and had Abraham cut the animals in half and then caused Abraham to fall asleep. And then the flaming pot goes between the animals. Anyway, the preacher kind of uses that to get to the gospel, and basically this idea like, if I break it, it's on me. If you break it, it's on me. Like kind of, and leading that to Jesus taking the curse for our sin on the cross. And so I had never really heard the Old Testament preached in a Christ-centered kind of way.
Sure.
So I'm sitting there, I'm holding my daughter, and it like hits me so hard. I like hand my daughter to somebody else. I'm like, yo. And at that same service, then I look over and it's freaking Odd Thomas. I'm like, yo, what are you doing here? Because I had ran into him in LA a few times, but he and his wife moved to Portland. But we had never kicked it really since he had moved to Portland. All of a sudden, we're both at the same church service. And like I said, there wasn't that many people there. So that's when me and him started kicking it real, real heavy. And so he just became like a precious brother in the Lord who saw the season that I was in. Me and him would be hanging out. His wife would babysit my daughter sometimes. And it was all just happening at the same time. But man, I can't say like the reason I didn't shipwreck is because I was so wise, or what I knew was this is a dangerous situation to be in. And so instead of trying to do it on my own, my instinct, I remember one Sunday, bro, the speech from Arrested Development was in town and he was preaching somewhere else. So I went to a morning service, speech was somewhere. I went to an afternoon service. I went to an evening service. I just surrounded myself with God's people. And the only way I knew how to do that was to be at the church, And so I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew I needed something outside of myself in order to make it through. And so I ran to the Lord, bro. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. And thank God for that. I'm grateful to God that you had the strength through all that, because that can be the most difficult loss in many ways. Well, I'm glad you made it through, and here on the other side you seem to have a lot more clarity and stuff. I'm wondering, how have you encountered like your music, beyond like the 100 people, 200 people lined up for a selfie? Are there any ways that you've seen like your music has impacted somebody in a meaningful way, or anything that jumps out from 18 years as a professional musician? You must have had an impact on somebody.
Some of the stuff that's wild to me, man, is I think the gritty perseverance. Like I just put out a best of collection called Kept Safe. And part of that is, as I was revisiting my old catalog, one of the themes that I just noticed in the music was perseverance. And so whether it was a song like Keep On, these various songs, but those songs would reach people when like they really needed someone to give them some kind of word of encouragement to like keep going, or like they were at their own crossroads where it's about to go really dark for me, or I'm gonna I'm going to get my act together. And so it would surprise me, man. I through the years, messages from people who struggle with addiction, which for me, my father was an alcoholic, and I never really abused substances in my life. So I don't rap about substance abuse. I don't rap about overcoming addiction. But man, the number of people who have hit me up over the years who were either in rehab or something like that and said, yo, this song or this song helped me in this time in my life. That's like countless, man. So many times where the way in which I was trying to persevere through whatever I was trying to persevere through and communicated that in a song became like, you know, a song that resonated with someone else who was trying to persevere through something. And, all kinds of things, man, people who would lose loved ones. So, people really in like the most dire of circumstances, I would say the loss of a loved one, substance abuse, even because I was public when I went through the divorce, dude. The number of people over the years, it's crazy. Some stranger reaches out to me. Yo, I just found out my spouse is having an affair on me. How do I get through this? And so that goes from, it's not just the music. It's like I'm on the phone with somebody that I don't even know, learning about their situation and trying to talk them off the ledge, of what would it look like for you to persevere through this situation that you can't snap your fingers and get out of it. And so I think like learning to continue, to persevere by God's strength has, both through music and through relationships, has placed me just in proximity to other people who are in different kinds of circumstances, but need someone to encourage them to persevere and to actually process whatever they're going through in a healthy way when like the unhealthy option is like right there for them.
Sure. It often presents itself very consistently.
Yep.
Now, if perseverance is the like, it's actually funny you said that, because I was going to ask you if there were any driving themes that have emerged over the body of the body of your work has accumulated. So obviously perseverance would be the first one that comes to mind. Do you have a second?
Well, and what I think there's the gritty side. So there's the perseverance, there's the gritty side that is like you yourself, you have to keep going. Like, yes, like trust the Lord, but you do have to put one foot in front of the other, right? And so there's the perseverance on the one side, which is I've got to keep going, so that's one theme, is like just this gritty. My friend Tony Stone, he told me this once. He was like, yo, one of the things I learned from you was gritty godliness, and he just means like that elbow grease, like just keep going. But I think the other side is the divine side of the coin, which is why I call it kept safe. Is it's not like I've persevered through my own grit. Man, I've persevered by God's grace. It's so clear to me that yes, I had to keep going, but the reason I kept going is because God was keeping me. Like I've been broken, I've been beaten, I've been dragged through the mud, and yet God has kept me safe. It's like this treasure in a jar of clay. Like really, I've been confronted with my own fragility. Like I can keep going, but I can't keep myself, and
Right.
And so God really has kept me. He's shown me the power, but his power in weakness, not like his power manifested in my life so that I can accomplish great things, but his power manifested in my life to sustain my faith, to prove the genuineness of it, to use trials to refine me, and to mold me and to shape me into the likeness of Christ. That's a work of God. Like I can keep going, but I can't produce a positive outcome of my keep going. Like if you're going in the wrong direction, keep going all you want. Like it's not going to get you anywhere. And so it's like that. It's that combination of I'm going to keep going, but I keep going because God is keeping me.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you one time, at least, you know, how your music is really intersected with my life. And that was like, we were at my wife and I, you were doing, it was the IV release party, and it was at Bourbati's.
Wow. Yeah.
And I remember you had that song about, you know, your pops dying. And
Yep.
her dad literally died like same, I don't know if it was the same year, but it was like '07 when he passed away, but of the exact same thing. And so
Wow.
we're like, you know, doing that song, like she broke down in tears because like it was just so fresh. And so for me, it was just so, you know, it was just so, you know, I guess providential, you know, to kind of for her to hear someone else going through like literally the exact same thing, you know.
Wow. Yeah, man. I mean, that song, both you start with the first verse, many stories, that is the song, right? And the first verse is when my first daughter was born. When she was born, she had rapid eye movement. And instead of us being like, oh, we're gonna take the baby home, they're like, no, we gotta bring her to the NICU, you know, so intensive care. They're doing an MRI, they're doing a spinal tap, you know, all this stuff. And so that's just like, it was just wild. And not only that, I'm an uninsured rapper. So all of a sudden, they're doing all this stuff. And it's like, I get the hospital bills, you know, which, you know, maybe at the time, you know, because I was uninsured, it's like $13,000 or something like that. I'm like, what the heck? Like, this is having a child. I knew like there was a cost involved, but this is on another level.
Right.
And then shortly after, shortly after she was born, so I lived in Salem at the time. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I'm literally writing that song with the guy Barry Hampton who produced it and sang it. I'm writing that song. It's like midnight. I'm in Portland, Oregon, and I get the call while I'm writing that song that my dad just got admitted to the hospital. And so I drive from Portland at midnight. I get to the hospital. I'm the first one there, and before they bring me to see my dad, they have a chaplain come and see me first. And so it was like, there's no like final words. There's no have a conversation. They're like, we're going to bring you back there, but he's just breathing from a machine, you know? And so it's like to go from the last time I saw my dad, we were just talking, we were figuring out, oh, maybe you should get a job over here or whatever. And then the next time I see him, it's like, I didn't even talk to him when I walked into the room because it was so obvious he was breathing from the machine, but I'm like, he's gone. It was so obvious. And the chaplain kind of prepared me for that. But that was the circumstance. I was writing about my daughter. And then that second verse, I wrote it after the fact because the two events were so connected to me in that season of life. But it was that succession of events, bro. It went from my daughter's birth, 2006, and the complications. My dad passed away 2007. 2008, the economy collapsed, so we sold our house, moved to Portland. 2009, my wife left. 2010, I filed bankruptcy, like started over again. So it was just like one thing after another for like a year after year, man, for like a 4-year period. Yeah. And so, but it is wild when people share stories like what you just shared, brother, where I'm literally just processing out loud, you
Right.
know, like what's going on. But it's like we're not that unique, man. Like other people are going through the same things. And that's what's wild about music. You just end up sometimes getting to be the mouthpiece for an experience that feels really personal to you, but it feels personal to other people because there's nothing new under the sun. You know,
Right.
anything you're going through, someone else is going through it as well. And so that's just that was always wild to me. It's like, man, I'm putting into words someone else's experience, but I don't even know that I'm doing it when I'm doing it because I'm just putting into words my own experience. It's just that it's not my experience only. It's other people share it with me.
You're getting therapy on record and then sharing it with other people.
Yeah, something like that, man.
But sometimes that is the best stuff, and I think it's worth saying thank you for sharing that part of you in that music, because uh death is something that makes people uncomfortable. And I'm not going to go Mr. Rogers on you, but Mr. Rogers uh talked about how death was like something we should talk about,
Yeah.
and that, like, that's an important part of the process, and we need to be able to tell our children that it's real. And while they have to grow into that understanding, um communicating that is so important, and we shy away from that.
Yep.
And I think we do our children a disservice if we're not real about it. So, like, you sharing that on record, that speaks to a lot of people, and that's the kind of authentic hip hop that I want to support. So just gonna go on record and say that.
Man. Yeah, I mean, in the layer of uh do I have permission to share these stories, as I think musically. So now, since I've been in pastoral ministry and I've kind of already shared, there was an elderly population in my congregation. So in the last 6.5 years, I've officiated almost 20 funerals.
Oh, wow.
And so many different experiences at the bedside of people, coming to a house right after someone just died, visiting someone the day before they die, all those experiences, and then the interactions with the family members. And yeah, man, it is really true what you're saying. Death is something that people often don't think about, and then it just catches them. And it's like, it catches them, and it's happening every day.
Yep.
But I've never been so aware of death in my life as I am now, because I've 20 funerals. I mean, we've had 4 members in our congregation pass just in the last 5 months, and in different kinds of ways, whether it's somebody passing of cancer, somebody passing of heart failure, someone having a stroke, somebody catching pneumonia at an old age, just different things. And at different ages, people who pass in their late 50s, people who pass in their 60s, 80s, 90s. And it's Moses says in Psalm 90, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And it is a lot of times people, they want to avoid the topic of death, but it is actually instructive for us to recognize the number of years you got. It feels like so many, but really they are going to fly by. They really are.
Yes.
Well, bro, I mean, I think it's like, us, middle-aged men, I think that, you start kind of on the other side, kind of in that midpoint, when you kind of start looking at, like, I probably have as much years ahead of me as I do behind me. And so you start kind of thinking about, like, okay, I need to, like, start doing things, start getting life in order, because, I was figuring things out, but now, like, I'm like, we're not promised tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, dude, now that when we talk about being 80, like, I've got the mental picture. It used to be when you're younger, there's just old people, right? But it's like now
we're 40 younger.
Yeah. There was a point in my life where if I saw somebody who was 40, I felt like they were just an old head, right?
Yeah, right.
And so, but now, for me, the difference between a 60-year-old and an 80-year-old, that's not just an old person and an old person. I realize there's a big difference between life in your 60s and life in your 80s. So I've just been up close to it more now, in a way that I understand it better. And, when I start thinking about that, I'm like, bro, when I'm 80, like, so double, right now I'm 43. So double what I am right now, 86. Yep. First of all, if I was a betting man, I would not bet on me making it to 86, because I'm like, there's a lot of mileage on this body, bro. There's a lot of mileage on it. So I wouldn't bet on 86. But if I do make it to 86, I'll tell you, I'm not going to be doing 90% of the things I'm doing right now, so it's not even, you can't just quantify the number of years you have. It's
Yeah.
what you're able to do at the different stages
Right.
of life, you know?
Well,
And
hey,
so,
man, at 86, that Braille record might actually be in Braille. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, man. If I could
Special
get off
edition.
of Johnny Cash, bro, Rick Rubin's still around, and he's like, "Yo, let's have you cover some 9 Inch Nails." So I was like, "All
Yeah.
right."
You know, I once had a homebrew with an 82-year-old man who had terminal cancer, and that morning he had gone hunting for a goose, and then he took the guts from the goose that he shot and used it to go fishing, and then he met me for a beer, and I thought, you know, that's a good old life. Now, of course, you'd want to live longer than 82, even I suppose, if you have that quality of life. But I loved his attitude, even in the face of terminal cancer. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I see the ones like that for sure. The one thing I'll say is, the people who seem to do well is the ones who stay active.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
You know, so it's like something as simple as, man, if you got a grandparent, take them places and go on walks with them, because just simply walking is so underestimated. But as people get older, if they become too sedentary, it's like
Yeah.
the body,
Totally.
it can't recover from that, you know. And so you get too many sedentary years, and yeah. So this gal, I talk about Polly, man, 99. She'd walk like a mile every day, man, even when she was 99, and she was just, you know,
So
to whatever degree she stayed sharp, a lot of it had to do with she kept her body active.
Sure.
that's yeah.
Well, recognizing that we are up against the hour and you have dad duty to get to, I did have two more questions for you. They're very quick. One,
Let's do it.
you got anything you want to talk about in terms of upcoming projects or any ministry things you're excited about that you want to share real quick, and any socials you want to plug?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm kind of in a season where I'm going to try and be really productive with music. We'll see if I stick with it, but that's my goal. And so I just put out a best of record called Kept Safe, and it kind of is curating from the last 20 years or so the songs that I think best represent my catalog. Now, other people, they'll have their own opinions of what best represents my catalog, but it's the stuff that at least still resonates with me. But then I'm working on a project. It's just called Handcrafted Raps. And I'm just making songs. Like, I'm not overthinking it, because I think what was really hard for me to finish a project, because I'd always overthink it, or I'd be trying to make some magnum opus. And right now I'm just like, nah, I just got a bunch of beats from this producer in 1995, and I'm just making raps over them and enjoying making music. So that's the next project. The first single comes out April 11th, and hopefully the whole project will come out in June. On my socials and stuff, you can just find me, Brian Braille, Bryan, Braille, Braille, at all the socials.
Very nice. And my last question, we don't always get to ask this, but we always like to ask this. If you could just pinpoint maybe the first thing that comes to mind, but what's the greatest classic rap song of all time, and why do you love it so much?
Man, it's funny because I've been on this folk kick lately. Like the first song that comes to mind right now that's the greatest song is Blaze Foley, If I Could Only Fly. But you didn't ask me that. So
Nope.
Man, this rap song, I don't know. People ask me what's your favorite food, and I'm like, man, my favorite food is variety. I like variety, so it's really hard to say. It's really hard to say. I cannot, like, off the top of my head come up with like the one song. I would say this. I feel like De La Soul's catalog holds up better than almost anybody else's catalog. So I'll say that.
That's a good
I mean, that makes sense from someone who named an album Native Lungs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, but see, I was more Tribe Called Quest than De La Soul when I was young. So Tribe Called Quest was number one, and De La Soul was like, maybe top 10, but they weren't number one for me. But I feel like the innovation in their music. I feel like where Tribe Called Quest, you have a lot of very predictable rhyme schemes and rhyme patterns. You have very unorthodox rhyme patterns with De La Soul. They're not just rhyming on the 1 and the 2, and so and yet it sounds really natural. So I feel like their catalog has aged really, really well.
Dude. Well, I got one question because of the show. Normally you're fairly clean shaven. Did you start growing a little bit of a beard just because you be on the show?
Nah, man. It just, I was doing something at a college, and I didn't shave while I was teaching these college students. And then I was like, man, I was under the impression I couldn't grow a beard because it would always grow peach fuzz, within the first week or two. And I've been in the public eye my whole life. So I'm like, man, let me shave off that peach fuzz real quick before, people see me out here like I can't grow a beard. And but then I just let it go for a couple of weeks, and I was like, oh, I just haven't been patient enough. So this is the first time in my life that I've had a beard. And now I'm like, it would be really weird to shave it, even though this is like 5 weeks in, but I'm so used to it now. I'm like, I got to keep it around. So it just happened to be the perfect timing, especially since we've rescheduled like 100 times.
Yeah, it took a while to get it on the calendar.
It was weird. I had to have the beard before I could really be on,
Now it's all clear,
Yep. I see what was happening.
It looks good. It's working for you. And do you do any beard care with it to keep it looking so nice? No beard?
I haven't started anything yet because they say at least give it 6 weeks before you start trimming or whatever, because you want to let the whole thing grow in. Like my mustache gets out of control. I get like the Tom Selleck, and it's like the mustache is like way outpacing the rest of the beard. So I was like, babe, help me trim up this mustache a little bit while I wait for the beard to grow in, because the mustache is getting out of control. It's growing over my lips and stuff. So yeah, I eventually need to get some kind of beard care kind of regimen. But right now I'm just like, let's see what happens.
Bro, I'm close enough. I'll hook you with some oils and whatnot.
Okay. Holla up. Yeah, you tell me about it, man, because I'm exploring new things.
That's awesome.
Teaching an old dog new tricks over here,
Yeah,
right.
Got to keep it fresh.
That's right.
Hey, thanks for being on tonight. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I would love to do it again sometime down the road, especially if you do put out some more music. But in the meantime, I'm going to check out your Keep On. That's pretty
Kept safe.
Kept safe. My goodness.
Yes, sir.
Kept safe.
All right, y'all. Thank you, guys.
Peace, man.
All right.
All right, peace.
Hey yo, 9.1 wasn't a joke. Pistols blaze, young guns get lost in the smoke. There's a war going on between the rich and the broke. It's in the streets worldwide, overseas and under oath. From day one, man was flawed. We fall daily, no man is perfect, but we can keep working, fulfill our purpose before we're gone with the wind. Storing treasure for the final days, the focus on the end. Resolve the final place, and I write. My mind stays in the light. It sprays of rhymes to ignite freedom. I'm feeling like it's all over. Standing in the cold to be reminded that I'm still breathing, and I'm leaving this state of mind that got me depressed. All the desires of the flesh, give put to rest and understand we can live free in harsh reality and shine light when it's too dark to see. Keep on, sunrise to sunfall, get your back up off the wall and keep on. We in this together, good and bad weather, only the soul lasts forever. Keep on, sunrise to sunfall, get your back up off the wall and keep